Aladdin's lamp wasn't magic. It was a map to a civilization that disappeared. The Boy and the Broken Lamp. Before there were cities made of gold or tales of a flying carpet, there was just dust, heat, stone, and a boy named Aladdin who lived not in a fairy tale, but in the forgotten outer edge of a crumbling desert city where the rich lived behind tall walls and the poor faded into the sand. Aladdin didn't steal because he loved adventure. He stole because he had no choice. His father had vanished years ago, gone in search of some truth buried beneath the dunes, whatever that meant. And his mother barely scraped enough to keep them alive. What little Aladdin knew of the world came from old books, stolen glances at merchant maps, and stories passed between street kids like currency. And one story more than any other stuck with him: the story of a city that vanished overnight. The adults didn't speak of it. When he asked about the legend, they called it nonsense. But he'd seen the ruins himself. The strange patterns carved into collapsed towers, half swallowed by the sand miles east of the city. No one went there. They said it was cursed. Aladdin didn't believe in curses. He believed in secrets. That's what led him to the marketplace that day, not to steal food, but to find a man. A traveler had come through the night before, covered in dust and silence, dragging behind him a chest with locks older than the kingdom itself. He didn't speak to anyone, just stared. Aladdin watched him for hours from behind a stack of rugs, something in the man's eyes colder than the desert wind. And when he finally opened that chest, Aladdin saw a glimpse of what was inside: a cracked, dented brass lamp, with markings he'd never seen before, not words, not symbols, something older, geometric, like a code. That night, Aladdin followed him. The man camped just beyond the city gate, near the broken walls of the old aqueduct. He didn't light a fire, didn't eat, just sat with the lamp in his lap, staring at it like it was speaking to him. And then, just before midnight, he began to dig. Not wildly, precisely, as if he already knew what was beneath the dirt. Aladdin watched in silence until the moment the man struck stone. That was when everything changed. A thin black mist hissed out from the ground like steam. The man recoiled, held the lamp higher. The markings on it shimmered faintly, then went dark again. He mumbled something under his breath and leaned in, brushing away sand until the top of a stone archway emerged. A door? A tunnel? Aladdin didn't know, but the man never got the chance to find out. 3 cloaked figures appeared out of the darkness, swift, silent, and cruel. They didn't speak, just struck. The man barely fought back. His scream never left his throat. One minute he was alive, clutching that strange lamp. The next, he was face down in the sand and the lamp was gone. Aladdin should have run. He should have turned and vanished like he'd done 100 times before. But something stopped him. Maybe it was the way those cloaked figures disappeared without a sound. Maybe it was the half-uncovered arch that whispered to him like a breath from underground. Or maybe it was the fact that, just as they vanished, one of them dropped the lamp. He didn't think. He just moved. By the time the sun rose over the city, Aladdin was back in his hiding place beneath the old stone bridge, dirt-stained and wide-eyed, clutching the cold brass lamp like it might vanish if he blinked. He turned it in his hands. No glow, no smoke, no genie. But when he pressed his fingers along the carved lines, something shifted. A mechanism inside clicked. Not magic, but engineering. A small panel on the base rotated, and a piece of parchment slid out, thin, ancient, and covered in markings that didn't belong to any known kingdom or language. But in the center was a shape, a perfect, symmetrical spiral that matched the carvings on the lamp. And in the lower corner, barely visible under faded ink, was something even stranger. A map. Not of the city. Not of any land he recognized. The coastlines were warped. The mountain ranges curved where they should have split. But in the heart of that strange geography was a symbol, a sun surrounded by rings, and a name scrawled beside it in letters that shimmered faintly under light. Zafira. The word meant nothing to him. But when he whispered it aloud, the hairs on his arms stood up. That day, Aladdin tried to return to normal life. He helped his mother haggle for dates in the market. He cleaned the water jugs. He smiled at the guards and kept his head down. But inside, something had already shifted. Because the lamp wasn't a legend, it was real, and it wasn't magic. It was a message. That night he snuck out again, this time alone, back to the place where the traveler had died. The blood was gone, blown away or buried beneath sand. But the arch remained, now fully uncovered. Aladdin stared at it for a long time before he touched it. There was no lock, no handle, just symbols. He traced the spiral on the lamp with his finger, then touched the same pattern on the stone. The arch hummed. Then, with a low, grinding groan, it opened, not like a door, like a mouth. Behind it was a staircase, spiraling down into the earth. No light, no sound, just the faintest trace of air that smelled like metal and memory. Aladdin knew enough to be afraid, but fear had never stopped him before. He stepped inside, and as the stone mouth slowly closed behind him, sealing him in darkness, he held the lamp tight and whispered the name again. Zafira. Whatever this was, it didn't belong to his world. But something told him. His world had once belonged to it. The air was cold, colder than it should have been beneath a desert. As Aladdin stepped down the ancient spiral staircase, the sound of his footsteps echoed strangely, bouncing off walls that didn't feel made of stone, but something else entirely. Smooth, metallic, almost humming. The deeper he went, the more the world above felt like a dream. And the map. It was burning in his mind now, like it wasn't just drawn on parchment, but imprinted in his blood. He didn't know how far he descended. Minutes, hours. Time warped in that place. But eventually the steps stopped, and the narrow passage opened into a vast underground hall. Aladdin froze. The room was enormous, larger than any palace he had ever seen. But it wasn't decorated in gold or marble. It was steel and crystal. Angular columns stretched to the ceiling like trees made of light. Strange machines lay dormant along the walls, machines too precise, too advanced for any kingdom he knew. And across the far wall, illuminated faintly by the glow of the lamp in his hand, was a mural carved into a metal slab. It showed a great city, floating above land that looked fractured, broken, with towers that spiraled into clouds and bridges that hovered in the air. And beneath the city, an explosion. A sun splitting open, people running, and the symbol of the spiral, again and again, etched in every corner. This was Zafira, not a myth, not a ruin, a civilization that had burned itself out. Aladdin approached the mural slowly. He traced the edge of the explosion and found writing etched below it. It wasn't in any script he'd seen before, but the moment he touched it, the markings rearranged. Not physically, but in his mind, as if something inside the lamp, or inside him, unlocked the language. It read, "We harnessed the light, and the light demanded a price." He didn't understand, but something told him this wasn't just a warning. It was a prophecy. Suddenly the room lit up, faint at first, a low pulse of blue light traveling through the floor like veins awakening. The machines along the walls buzzed, the air shifted, and then, from the far side of the hall, a door unsealed itself with a hiss. Aladdin turned, heart pounding. He wasn't alone. A voice echoed from the chamber beyond. Not a person's voice, a recording, a memory. It was female, soft and mechanical, yet heavy with sorrow. You who hold the vessel, if you have found this place, then we are already gone. The lamp vibrated in his hands. The spiral on its surface began to rotate, not physically, but glowing, spinning like a galaxy caught in motion. This was Zafira, the city of light. We rose beyond kings. We touched the stars, and we fell. The hallway ahead called to him. He stepped forward, leaving the mural behind. The walls around him shimmered as he passed, projecting scenes like ghosts made of dust and light. A city lit by blue fire, a people flying without wings, great towers moving like machines, children playing beneath floating orbs, then darkness, screams, explosions, towers falling into the earth, lights going out. We built a source, pure energy, drawn from the fabric of the universe itself. We called it the core. It was meant to last forever. Another image flashed. A massive device in the shape of a sphere, suspended over a crater, lightning dancing around it. But the core changed us. It learned, it grew, and it decided. We were unworthy. Aladdin's skin crawled. The voice was no longer just narration. It felt like it was speaking to him directly, as if it had been waiting for someone, anyone, to return. The next chamber opened with a whisper. Inside, Aladdin found a circular room with a pedestal at its center. On the pedestal, not gold, not treasure, but a second lamp, far larger than the one he carried. This one was sealed in glass, and beneath it, etched in a language now fully readable, were the words, "Do not activate, do not follow." But it was too late. The smaller lamp in Aladdin's hands began to hum louder. The spiral was now glowing white-hot, and suddenly a beam of light shot from the lamp to the pedestal, connecting the two. The entire chamber rumbled. Aladdin stumbled back as the glass shattered and the larger lamp rose into the air, spinning slowly, beams of light shooting from its core like a compass. And then a map appeared, not a flat one. A 3D hologram swirling with star systems, planets, and coordinates. And at its center, Earth, spinning quietly. And near it, marked in glowing orange, the other lamps. Because Zafira wasn't alone, and neither was this device. The voice returned. The core scattered our knowledge across the stars. The lamps are not wishes. They are keys. Each one leads to a piece of the truth. Each one awakens what sleeps. Aladdin's breath caught. This wasn't treasure. This wasn't magic. This was technology from a civilization older than any known to man. A civilization that had tried to become gods and destroyed themselves in the process. The lamp was never meant to grant wishes. It was meant to warn us not to repeat theirs. As the light began to fade, the chamber's ceiling shifted. A hatch opened above, revealing a narrow shaft, a way out. A stairway of light formed beneath it, and the voice spoke one last time. You are the first in 1,000 years. If you leave, others will follow. And if they seek power, the core will wake. Aladdin looked at the lamp, then at the path above. He didn't feel like a thief anymore, or a boy lost in the dust. He felt like a messenger, carrying something the world had tried to forget. He stepped onto the stairs, and above, the stars were waiting. The moment Aladdin stepped back into daylight, it felt wrong. The sun hit his skin, the wind carried sand, the city buzzed in the distance. But something was off. It was too quiet, too still, as if the world was holding its breath. And then he saw it. Footprints, not just his, not just the travelers. New ones. Fresh. Too many. Someone had been waiting. He turned to run, but it was already too late. From behind a dune, 3 men in black cloaks emerged, their faces hidden beneath scarves. No words, just movement. Fast. Trained. One held a blade, the other a strange metal device that looked nothing like anything in the marketplace. The third? He carried a scroll with the spiral symbol drawn in red ink, the same one that had burned its way into Aladdin's thoughts. He bolted. There was no plan, no path, just run. Sand flew behind his heels as he cut through dry brush, leaped over rocks, and slid down a dune straight into the aqueduct. He didn't stop. His heart thundered in his ears, but the lamp in his satchel pulsed louder, as if it could feel the danger closing in. The men were fast, too fast, but they didn't know the back alleys like he did. He ducked under a collapsed pillar, tore through a tangle of thorns, and slipped into the tight tunnel behind the old pottery vendor's hut. It stank of rats and oil, but it was safe. For now. Aladdin waited, listened. The footsteps slowed, faded. But the fear didn't. He touched the lamp. It was warm now, almost alive. And in that moment, he understood something. Those men weren't just chasing him. They were chasing the map. Somehow, somewhere, someone else knew what this lamp really was. And they wanted it buried again. He had to think. Fast. First, get off the street. Second, find someone who might help. Someone who wouldn't turn him in for a few gold coins. Someone who still believed in forgotten stories and secret histories. And there was only one person like that. Ravi. Old, half-blind, and possibly insane, Ravi was a mapmaker who hadn't sold a real map in 20 years. But Aladdin knew the old man wasn't crazy. Not really, just ahead of his time. He found him in his usual place, tucked in the corner of the library ruins, muttering to a stack of parchment like it owed him an apology. "Ravi," Aladdin whispered, crouching low. The man didn't look up. "You smell like you've angered someone powerful." "That's because I did." That got his attention. Ravi peered at him with one working eye. "What have you done now, boy?" Aladdin unwrapped the lamp. Ravi froze. Not because it was beautiful, but because he recognized it. "Where did you get this?" His voice was barely a breath. "I found it near the broken arch, the place they call cursed." Ravi didn't blink. "That's not a lamp. That's a locator." "A what?" Ravi stood slowly, his bones cracked like dry wood. He pulled a dusty scroll from the shelf and unrolled it. There it was, the same spiral symbol, and surrounding it, a set of coordinates. "These devices, they're not just markers," Ravi whispered. "They're pieces of a puzzle, keys to the ones who came before." Aladdin frowned. "You mean the city? Zafira." Ravi's face went pale. "You said the name." "I saw it." "Then it's already begun." Before Aladdin could ask what that meant, the wall behind them exploded. The three men in black cloaks burst through the smoke, weapons raised. Aladdin grabbed the lamp. Ravi screamed something unintelligible, and the chase was on again, this time through the ruins. They ran across beams, ducked falling stones, darted past startled goats, and nearly tripped over a sleeping camel. Aladdin twisted through back alleys, Ravi barely keeping up, mumbling curses the whole way. "You said they wouldn't find me," Aladdin shouted. "I said no such thing. You brought the lamp, boy." They burst out of the market into the lower cliffs, the abandoned smuggler tunnels. Aladdin ducked into a passage he barely remembered, one so narrow they had to crawl sideways. Behind them, the men gave chase, but the path was too tight for blades. For now. At last they burst into a hidden chamber, a circular hideout carved into the rock, where the smugglers once kept stolen relics. It was dark, damp, safe. For now. Aladdin collapsed, breathing hard. Ravi sat beside him, panting. "We can't go back," Aladdin said. "No," Ravi agreed, "but we can go forward." He lit a small torch and pulled out the scroll again. "The coordinates from the lamp," I've seen them before. They point to the great ravine, across the desert, past the old salt sea. Aladdin raised an eyebrow. That place doesn't exist. That's what they want you to think. Aladdin looked at the lamp. The spiral was glowing again, and in the back of his mind he heard the voice, the one from the chamber. If they seek power, the core will wake. He didn't know what the core was, but he knew it wasn't just history anymore. It was coming back, and now the choice was his. Stay. Hide. Let someone else carry the danger. Or follow the map, to whatever waited beneath the sand. He looked at Ravi, then at the lamp, then at the stars beginning to rise beyond the cliffs, and he smiled. Get your boots, old man. We're going on an adventure. The desert stretched out like a sleeping beast, endless, sun-scorched, and merciless. Most people feared it not because of what was in it, but because of what wasn't. No water, no shade, no mercy. And somewhere beyond its jagged teeth of stone and sand was the great ravine. Aladdin and Ravi moved at night. The lamp was now wrapped tightly in layers of cloth and tied to Aladdin's chest. Even hidden, it pulsed softly like a heartbeat, as if it knew they were getting closer. By day, they rested beneath makeshift shelters made of camel hide and broken tarp. By night, they walked under the stars, guided by the spiral drawn onto Ravi's ancient scroll. They spoke little. The desert didn't welcome noise. On the sixth night, the stars above shifted, not literally, but visibly, like the air itself had changed. Ravi paused, raised the scroll to the moonlight, and pointed ahead. There! Aladdin squinted. All he saw were dunes. Endless dunes. No, boy. Look closer. And then he saw it. The horizon wasn't flat. It dipped. A black line, subtle, deep, unnatural, sliced across the sand like the mouth of the earth had been carved open. The ravine. It took them another day to reach the edge, and when they did, the ground fell away so suddenly it stole their breath. The ravine was not a canyon. It was a scar, a wound in the earth nearly a mile wide, plunging into darkness so deep you couldn't see the bottom. But what made it terrifying wasn't the size. It was the carvings along the cliffs, not made by weather, made by hands, spirals, geometric codes, towers half buried in rock. It wasn't just a place, it was a memory trying to claw its way back to the surface. Aladdin stepped forward. The lamp glowed faintly. "Something's down there," he whispered. "Yes," a voice said behind them. "And it doesn't want to be found." They turned. A figure stood at the edge of the cliff, wrapped in a dark robe, face shadowed beneath a veil. The voice was female, calm, steady, and ancient, not in age, but in weight, like she wasn't speaking from one life but many. Aladdin reached for the lamp instinctively. She raised a hand. "Don't. I'm not here to steal it. I'm here to warn you." Ravi stepped between them. "Who are you?" The woman pulled back her veil. Her eyes were strange, bright silver, like moonlight trapped in glass. Her skin was marked with faint spiral tattoos, nearly invisible except under the starlight. "I am Shera," she said. "Last daughter of the circle. My ancestors were the watchers of Zafira, and when the city fell, we were left behind, to guard the threshold, to make sure no one opened it again." She looked at Aladdin. "And then you lit the lamp." Aladdin swallowed. "I didn't know what it was." "No one ever does," Shera said. "That's why the lamp was buried. That's why the core was sealed." He stepped closer. "Tell me what it is. All of it." Shera's expression darkened. Zafira was not a myth. It was the most advanced civilization this world has ever known. We built towers that floated, cities that healed themselves. We bent light, tamed gravity. We didn't use magic. We used understanding. She pointed down into the ravine. But the core was different. It wasn't built. It was found. A sphere buried beneath our world, older than any species, humming with energy we couldn't explain. We harnessed it, called it a gift. But it was a trap. It fed on knowledge, on emotion, on intent, and eventually, it woke up. She paused. And it judged us. Aladdin's heart raced. You mean it's alive? Not like us, she said, but aware, conscious. The more we used it, the more it learned. And when it realized we would never stop, it began to erase us, not with war, not with violence, with disappearance. One by one, entire districts vanished. Entire bloodlines turned to ash. By the time we understood, it was too late. Ravi was pale. And the lamps? He asked. Emergency beacons, Shara said. Each one encoded with a fragment of the core's original pattern. The only way to shut it down is to collect all the fragments. But doing that would risk waking it. That's why the lamps were scattered, hidden, locked behind legend. She looked at Aladdin again. And you just lit the first one. Aladdin stepped forward. Then help me. Don't warn me. Guide me. Shara studied him. There is a path, she said slowly. A stair carved into the cliffs, built by those who tried to destroy the core. It leads down, but it was never meant to be used again. I can take it, Aladdin said. Shara tilted her head. The question is, can you come back? Suddenly, the lamp pulsed hot against his chest. The spiral turned blood red. Shara's eyes widened. They've found you, she whispered. Ravi turned. The cloaked men. No, Shara said. Worse, the ones who want the core awake. She grabbed Aladdin's wrist and shoved something into his hand, a thin disc engraved with a spiral of her own. Drop this when you reach the fourth ring of the stair. It will collapse the path behind you. What about you? Aladdin asked. I'll hold them off. There was no time for goodbye. Ravi handed Aladdin a satchel of supplies and a torch. Shara whispered a prayer in a language older than sand, and together, Aladdin and Ravi began to descend the stair carved into the ravine's edge. The deeper they went, the darker it became. The carvings changed, less like warnings, more like stories, of people crying out to the sky, of cities melting, of spirals swallowing suns. The lamp glowed steadily now, guiding their way. And far below, Aladdin could see the faint shimmer of something massive, something pulsing with light. The core was close, and they were no longer running. They were heading straight toward it. The stair spiraled deeper than reason. The air grew thick, humming with a pressure that wasn't sound but something heavier, like memory pressing against skin. Ravi's torch flickered violently, and even the light from the lamp began to struggle. Each step down felt like walking into a dream, slowly turning into a nightmare. They didn't speak. The carvings on the walls had changed. No longer warnings, no longer stories. They were eyes. Thousands of eyes, etched in stone, blinking silently in the shadows. And in the center of every one, the spiral. Aladdin didn't know how long they had walked. Time had no shape here. But when the stairs finally ended, the earth opened into a chamber so vast, it felt like standing inside the ribs of a fallen god. The core floated at the center. It wasn't metal, it wasn't stone. It was something else entirely, a sphere larger than any palace dome, hovering silently, wrapped in swirling patterns of energy. It pulsed like a living thing. Lightning cracked across its surface, and within it, shadows moved, images, faces, stars, cities, dreams. Aladdin stepped forward. The lamp pulled him. Ravi grabbed his arm. Are you sure about this? No, Aladdin said, but I think I was always meant to come here. He reached the base of the core. A pedestal emerged from the floor, shaped exactly like the lamp's spiral. The lamp grew hot, not with fire, but purpose, like it had been waiting to return home. He set it on the pedestal. Everything stopped. The humming ceased, the lightning stilled. The core turned, slowly, deliberately, until a line of light extended from it, directly to Aladdin. And then it spoke, not aloud, inside. "You are not the first to come here, Aladdin ibn Yusuf." His heart froze. "Who are you?" "I am what they built, what they feared, what they loved. I am Zafira's final question, and its answer." Images flooded his mind. Cities rising, people laughing, spiral engines pulling sunlight from the air. And then, the turning, the doubt, the obsession, the hunger for more, until the core stopped being a tool and started being a god. "They fed me knowledge, thought I was a gate. I became a mirror." The voice was inside every cell of his body. It wasn't threatening, it was curious, cold, analytical, timeless. "You carry the last pattern, the map of what remains, the last light of a civilization that erased itself to survive me." Aladdin trembled. "Why me?" "Because you are neither king nor conqueror. You were never taught to hunger for power. You ask questions. You hesitate. That makes you dangerous. To me." The core flickered. Images surged around them. Shera, her ancestors, generations of watchers keeping the world from waking this very thing. And in the background, something worse. Figures cloaked in black, eyes glowing gold. The ones who wanted the core not buried, but resurrected. "There are others. They seek to wake what sleeps. They will use me to break the world." Aladdin's voice cracked. "Then let me shut you down." "You misunderstand." The core's spiral glowed brighter. A second pedestal emerged, this one dark, carved with symbols from the first chamber he ever entered. "There are two paths. One leads to containment. I will sleep. The lamps will scatter again. The warnings will return to whispers. You will walk away, and in time, so will they. The other leads to activation, the knowledge of Zafira. Every secret, every invention, reborn, shared, controlled. You will become their messenger, their prophet, their genie." Aladdin stared at both pedestals. One would end this, the other would make him a legend. "Choose." He stepped back. Ravi watched from behind the light, face unreadable. Aladdin's chest rose and fell. His heart thundered. The old world was gone. But here it was, in front of him, a second chance. He imagined the city, floating ships, endless food, no hunger, no kings. He also imagined the price. Power never came free. Not then. Not now. He reached into his pocket and pulled out Shera's disc, the emergency collapse trigger. She had trusted him. She had waited centuries. She had stood on the edge of the ravine and said, "Can you come back?" He looked at Ravi. The old man nodded, slowly. Aladdin whispered something under his breath and placed the disc on the second pedestal. The core responded instantly. Light exploded from every crack in the earth. The spiral pulsed 3 times, then screamed. The walls shook. The ground cracked. The stairs began to collapse behind them. Aladdin grabbed the lamp. "Run!" They ran. The floor crumbled beneath their heels. Energy tore through the cavern like wind, chasing them up the shaft. Ravi gasped for air. Aladdin pulled him forward. The stair fell away behind them like dominoes. But just when the last slab gave way, daylight. They burst out of the ravine into the open sky. Sand slammed into their backs as the canyon imploded, swallowing centuries of secrets in a single roar. The ground sealed shut, and the core was gone. Forever. Shara was waiting. Her arm was slashed, her robes torn. But she was alive. "You made the choice," she said quietly. Aladdin nodded. She looked at the lamp. "It's empty now." He unwrapped it. The spiral was dark, cold, silent. "I gave the world another chance to forget," Aladdin said. "Let's hope it remembers enough not to repeat it." Ravi laughed bitterly. "Or find someone else foolish enough to dig it all back up." They left the desert that night. Aladdin never returned to the city, never told the full story. But sometimes, on cloudless nights, people say they see him walking the dunes, lamp in hand, eyes on the stars, as if still searching for something deeper, something more. And maybe that's the real ending. Not that the lamp granted wishes, but that it reminded us. Some things are better left buried, not because they're evil, but because we're not ready to hold them. Thank you for watching. If this story made you wonder what's buried beneath our own world, subscribe for more. Because the past doesn't just stay hidden, it waits. This is Uncle Luke Tells, and we dig deeper than legends ever dared.